Mission Bay, San Diego, California, the 80th running of the Gold Cup. And Steve, let's look at the field for today. Here are the boats that'll be raced and the men driving them. First of all, the Pepsi America's Choice and Mitch Evans from Lake Chelan, Washington.
A Seattle boat. This is the Jackpot Food Mart Garrett Turbo Special. Jerry Hopp, a young man from Snohomish, just north of Seattle, Washington.
Next up from the Los Angeles area, the U-80 sponsored by the Bahia Resort, Ron Armstrong and Bob Patterson, the owner of this boat, qualifying at almost 120.
This is Todd Yarling, a fourth-year driver from Hanauer, Indiana, the household finance company boat owned by Jim and Nancy Saddam, Mr. Consistency.
Next, Scotty Pierce, first year of the Mr. Pringles program with a turbine power, qualifying at over 123. Scott out of Seattle.
The Frank Kenney Toyota Volvo team based in Seattle has a new driver, Jack Schafer. He's a veteran and another second-generation driver.
Ron Snyder out of the state of Ohio. Boy, does he get a ride in this boat. The Holset Miss Madison, and he is one of the finest drivers around, qualifying just over 126.
George Woods has to be one of the favorites in a very fast piston-powered boat. A former Atlas Van Lines and Squire shop, George in his rookie year.
Here is the defending national champion and the current point leader, Jim Kropfeld on the Miss Budweiser. Jim out of Cincinnati, Ohio.
And could it be that Chip Hanauer and the Miller American crew have put it together just in time after a miserable year? They qualify at 149.3 miles per hour.
The format for the Gold Cup is really quite simple. First of all the boats will compete in 3 preliminary heats. Then, of the 10-boat field, the top 6 point getters go into the winner-take-all final. Each preliminary heat is broken into 2 fields, 5 boats each, and here is the rundown for Heat 1A. As you see, Evans, Hopp, Yarling and company. To summarize this first heat, it was all Miller American. Chip Hanauer out of Seattle, Washington, trying to extend, of course, his string of Gold Cup victories, came in with 400 points. Coming in second place out of Lake Chelan, Washington, was Mitch Evans, driving the Pepsi America's Choice, owned by Ed Cooper out of Madison, Indiana. Of the 5 boats, only 2 finished. Yarling and Hopp failing to finish. Scott Pierce did not start. Let's go down to the pits and talk to the winner.
5-3.
Chip, good start to a long day.
Yeah, it's how we're have to go at this, is just one step at a time, and worry about the next heat now and put the final off till we get there.
Whenever you were near traffic, you stayed way outside. You stay out of trouble?
You saw that, huh? Yeah, there's a lot of salt water up in the air. You know, these boats throw a lot of water up there, and not only do they throw a lot of water up there, it stays suspended up there for a long time, so you really have to go a long way out of your way to stay out of it.
1 down, 3 to go.
Yeah, just take the other one as it comes, and we're just going to take it 1 step at a time.
In the second flight of Heat 1, that being 1B, the second 5 boats. Ron Armstrong, Schafer, Snyder, Woods, and Kropfeld. It was Snyder and George Woods out front at the start of Heat 1B. For some reason, the Budweiser and Jim Kropfeld way back in 4th place, and that was where he eventually finished. It was George Woods out of Seattle driving for Jim Harvey, the boat owner, out in 1st place with Jack Schafer in 2nd place, and Ron Snyder in 3rd throughout much of the heat. Finally, averaging better than 121 miles per hour, George Woods got 1st place in Heat 1B, 2nd place to Jack Schafer, and 3rd to Ron Snyder. Also coming in 5th place, the U-80 and Ron Armstrong with a lot of damage. And speaking of damage, the Budweiser did get 4th, but it caught fire on its way to the pits. Evidently, some type of material went in the intake, got in near the gearbox, and the gearbox overheated, causing the fire. Kropfeld uninjured, but the boat badly damaged, and we'll see if they can get in for the rest of the day. Here are the points for Heat 1B. Now, down to the pits.
Were you surprised at such an easy one with the beer boat in it?
Oh, yes, I was, Steve. I expected them to come by about any time, so I kept looking over my shoulders and kept hoping that he wasn't coming, and nobody caught me there at the end, so we're real happy with our first heat.
The start went just the way you wanted it to.
Yep, we were right up there in front, clicked the clocks nice and clean down into the first turn, and just had an easy run the first one today.
On to the Gold Cup.
On to the Gold Cup. We got 45 more miles to race. There's a lot of racing left today.
And the Budweiser is in a different kind of race, against the clock. They must assess the damage and try to get it ready for the next flight of heats. Back in a minute.